Hi, I'm Ben. Welcome to my book corner. And today we're continuing with the Banned Books Challenge for 2024. And this is the number 4 most challenged book in the US in 2022. And that book is Flamer by Mike Curato. This is a YA graphic novel that was first released in September of 2020. And it comes in at a surprisingly chunky 368 pages. Whilst this is a work of fiction, I'm actually going to approach this a bit more like the way I approach genderqueer in terms of the review. We're going to talk again about specific ban information for 2022 into 2023. I'm then going to talk about some of the themes and the characters in the book and some of the things that this talks about before going on to the actual presentation and art style, before giving my final thoughts at the end of the video. So let's start off with the ban information on this one. So as the graphic on the screen already shows, this was the number 4 most challenged book in the US in 2022, and the challenges for this were around it having LGBTQIA+ content, as well as claims for it to be sexually explicit. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but that is according to the American Library Association. Now, in terms of specific challenges within 2022 and 2023, I'm once again going to the pen.org index of school book bans. And just like on the previous video, I'm going to name the state and then run through each district that has a ban or challenge for this book. So, starting off with Colorado, Cherry Creek School District. Florida, you have Clay County School District, Escambia County Public Schools, Marion County Public Schools, Volusia County Schools. Michigan, you have Dearborn Public Schools, Missouri Independent School District, Melville School Districts, North Kansas City Schools, Raytown Quality Schools, Rockwood School District, and Webster Groves School District. Oklahoma, you have the Tulsa Public Schools District. South Carolina, the Beaufort County School District. Texas, you have Conroe Independent School District, Fort Worth Independent School District, Frisco Independent School District, and Keller Independent School District. Utah, you have Alpine School District and Granite School District. And finally, in Virginia, you have Hanover County Public Schools. A number of those were mentioned in the previous video as well. So what does this graphic novel talk about that has caused uproar within some of these different school districts? So first thing to mention here is the story of the main character in this, who is named Aiden. A number of the situations in here are pulled from real life experiences of Mike Curato, the author, during their time as an Eagle Scout. So this follows Aiden. Aiden is in the summer between middle school and high school in America, and it's set during a week of the school break, holidays, whatever you choose to call them, and he's away with the Scouts. So what you have here is an all-male environment. And some things to cover about Aiden in specific. So first off, in terms of his home life, he is an older brother, so does have a sibling. However, he has what can be best described as an unsettled home life. His mother, from what we see in the book, is emotionally frail and is projecting and leaning on Aiden, and therefore Aiden's seeing some adult things that perhaps they should not be seeing. And in terms of Aiden's father, there is certainly an indication here that he is bad-tempered, angry, and potentially violent as well, with some specific violence mentioned within the book. On top of that, Aiden is also from a very religious household, practicing Catholic, and still goes to take part within various different events within the church, including communion. Also on top of that, Aiden is also of at least partial Asian heritage, and in terms of physicality, is described as being a little bit overweight, a little bit tubby as well. finally, in terms of behaviours and various other things, so it is mentioned that Aiden's voice is not as deep as a lot of the other boys, and therefore is described as quite effeminate in many regards. Even in terms of ways of walking and moving is critiqued in here as well. And also on top of that, due to his nature, Aiden is not especially sporty, does not really enjoy taking part in sports, partially because not very good at them, or doesn't feel like they're very good at them. But also the fact that there's that level of judgment because physically he's not in the same sort of shape as a number of the other boys that take part. So what you have here is someone who is in an all-male environment in the 90s when this is set. So just to be clear on that as well, Aiden is, I'd say, 14 years old, and this is set within the mid-90s. I think it's 1997, if memory serves correctly. And what you have here is a really good example of something that, whilst I do not like the term, I am going to use it here as a term of toxic masculinity, which I think gets misused sometimes, but it does apply here because this is a very toxic environment for Aiden, because he is singled out in multiple occasions throughout this book for various reasons, be it his heritage, his ethnicity, his physical prowess and ability and looks, and finally you have slurs going on here. And so what you have is a hotbed of bullying. This book kind of caused mild flashbacks for me back to when I was that age, and in fact I think I'd have been the same age as Aiden is in the same year as well. There's a number of slurs and insults and what you will politely call banter between various different people in here, which is very, very reminiscent of things that I remember from when I was at school. And whilst it is not a one-to-one sort of mirroring, there are cultural differences between the US and the UK. There's various other things as well. But there's very much a case of Aiden is singled out and being bullied because it doesn't fit the stereotypical view of what a teenage boy should be. Not interested in sports, more interested in what is described or by certain people within the book as more feminine activities, like, for example, basket weaving. Gay slurs are thrown around here, and in fact the title of the book, Flamer, certainly at the time, and I'm not sure if it has been sort of reclaimed in the same way the term queer has now, was also a slur. And this then layers on top of a level of what I would call religious shame. So obviously, again, this is set during the 90s, and due to religious upbringing, they are told how being gay is wrong in the Catholic Church at this point, and this still goes on today. So I'm going to pull some things directly from the book to sort of talk through some of the things that were said in here. The other thing I want to mention as well is even the supportive friends within this, the way they support as well is quite toxic, because their level of support is, well, maybe if you change the way you are, you wouldn't get bullied. And again, it's that forced adherence to this is what you should be like if you are a boy. And during the course of this story, this tale, Aiden, who is, again, teenage years, so you have a level of sexual awakening, begins to have thoughts and feelings about his sort of tent mate, his camping mate. And at one point within the book, leans in to kiss him on the cheek. And you have the fallout from that, the freak out of his friend who is called Elias, who you have this sudden rift open up towards the back end of the book. So I mentioned I want to read a couple of bits directly from the book. The first one is after an argument between Aiden and one of the bullies, and one of his friends is talking to him, and this is the advice he is given. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe if you wouldn't cry like a little bitch all the time, then people wouldn't say that shit to you. If you keep reacting like that, people are going to think you really are a slur. Gotta man up, buddy. Just forget about it. Let's go. And Aiden's reaction to this is, I know I'm not gay. Gay boys like other boys. I hate boys. They're mean and scary, and they're always destroying something or saying something dumb or both. We learned at school how bad homosexuality is. It's a sin. Gay people do bad things, and I'm not a bad person. I try to do good all the time, so I couldn't be gay. And you have that level of religious shame on one side, educational shame on the other, and the bullying from the group in terms of this is what a boy should look like. And you have a real sense of personal struggle, because at this point, Aiden is very much fighting against himself. And this develops throughout the course of the book, and this is set over the course of a week. And this obviously starts to attract him, because the other thing is he loves the outdoors. He loves the scouts. He loves doing the various activities. This is meant to be an escape from him, and instead it becomes this very hostile environment. This place that should be an escape from getting ready for high school, which he's really nervous about because of bullying he's already suffered, and also getting away from his home life, which is at best volatile. Now, the thing is, there is a scoutmaster here that seems to sympathise in many regards, and that Aiden is drawn to. And again, there's a really, really beautiful sort of panel in here where the scoutmaster is saying, there is no right north, really. This is all about figuring out how to get where you need to go. It's not always straightforward, and you have to figure out where you are in the world first, then adjust for setbacks to find your way. We all feel lost sometimes. Get what I'm saying? You're all right, Aiden. You'll figure it all out in your own time. Just keep going. And the really, really sad thing is that not long after this, that scoutmaster disappears, and Aiden overhears some talk between a couple of the other scout leaders talking about how he's been kicked out of the scouts because he's gay, and gay people shouldn't exist. And you have an argument going on between one scoutmaster and another, where the other one's saying, look, he's a good guy, that shouldn't have happened. The other one's basically saying, abomination, sinner, it's wrong. We know it's wrong, the Bible tells us. So you have that reinforcement of shame going on once again. And after Aiden tries to kiss his friend Elias on the cheek, you have the fallout from that, where Elias freaks out, and when Aiden wakes up the next day, he's not there. They avoid each other during the day, and it ends up, the level of shame ends up too much for Aiden, who writes a suicide note and goes to the local chapel that's within the grounds and stands before the altar with a knife at their wrist. And it's a really, really powerful scene. And you have this moment of almost talking to yourself, and it's unclear whether this is divine intervention, whether it's the realization that people really do want to help him, they're just doing it in a really shitty way. But there's a point in here where it actually says, even if all of them were to forsake you, you are enough. And it's really driven home by the art style, which I'll talk about in a minute. And he drops the knife and he walks out of the chapel, and he walks right into Elias, who's been really worried and been looking for him, and actually says, look, I'm sorry I freaked out. You just took me a bit by surprise. And they kind of make up, and he realizes that he's not on his own. There is people around him. Maybe what he did was just a shock, especially this environment, again, where you have this almost indoctrination of this is what a boy should be like. And you end up with the very last line in the book, which, again, I'm going to read. And it's a picture of him just stood at the campfire on his own, just in his underwear, body on show, which is imperfect, and a case of he's got the letter in his hand that he wrote, stood at the campfire. And he just says, my life feels like a mess. There are people I still don't know how to deal with. a family I still don't know how to live with. And there are feelings inside me that scare me to death. And he drops the letter into the fire and says, but today I discovered this fire isn't done burning, and it's finding that strength to persevere past the trolls and the bullies that is the really enduring message of this book. And it's why I think this is so important. Initially, the art of this reminded me quite a bit of Heartstopper in its level of, I don't want to say simplicity, but it's a very basic and clean drawing style that does enough to get the various scenes across and the ideas and the emotion. But what this does on a different level, partially due to the nature of what's being told here, is its moments of adding even more darkness to the page. You have pages in here that are nearly black, and the main character of Aiden or the various things around them sort of fade to grey on the page, which does a really, really good job of selling the darker feelings. And then on top of that, this does add more colour in there at moments of high emotional intensity, be them positive or negative. And that really makes some of the pages pop really, really strongly. And the strongest moments in here, and some of them will be on screen now, include where you have the really dark background and you've got the characters and the basic surroundings in muted shades of grey, with the bright oranges and reds and yellows really selling either the internal turmoil or the joy or the hatred or whatever feeling that Aiden is suffering at the time, and really sells the emotional turmoil that is going through Aiden's head as he tries to grapple with the sense of who he is, who he thinks he should be, and how that is clashing against each other due to the various things that he's learned growing up, be it through education, peer pressure, or indeed Bible scriptures. And they're trying to come to terms with how they don't quite fit, that I find really, really interesting. It really does elevate this and drive home the battle that this young man is facing throughout this entire book. Before I give my final thought, I want to do a channel shout out to Michael Romeo Talks Books. Michael recently reviewed Flamer. It's a really powerful review, real emotive review that I highly recommend you go and check out. Link it at the top for you. Also give him a subscribe as well, an amazing creator who does some really insightful and interesting videos. I highly recommend you check him out. Everything will be below. So for me, this is 5 stars. Why is it 5 stars? Because this is dealing with a difficult subject matter, or a series of subject matters, I should say, that young people, and in fact not even just young people actually, but many people go through, but specifically this is aimed at a younger audience, because at that point they may not have the tool set to deal with some of the things in here. And this book is the most uncomfortable one that I have read this year. This brought back some very unpleasant thoughts and feelings, but just because something is unpleasant does not mean it is not worthwhile and necessary, and this absolutely should not be banned. Yes, it deals with heavy subject matters. Abusive upbringings, religious and societal shame, body shaming, homophobia, sexism, racism, general bullying, self-harm, suicide, toxic upbringings. They are all covered in here. But to think that teenagers don't go through this is frankly stupid. And the thing is, this will potentially let people know that there is a way out, and that way is endurance. The 3 lines in here, "You are enough," is such a powerful statement that I wish I'd read it when I was 14 to 16. Because the bullying in here was nearly one-to-one with some of the stuff that I went through when I was that age. And I am aware that in many ways my upbringing was quite privileged. A lot of the stuff that Aiden goes through, I didn't go through. And plenty of people have been through far worse than I have. But this brought back some very unpleasant memories for me. And I think that's important, because it's highlighted something that I want to talk about. And that is the fact that What this book is really talking about is mental health, specifically for young people and specifically for men, but in general, mental health. And I think it's fair to say that we've got a bit of an epidemic in the world right now, and that is a mental health epidemic. Why do we have this? Because we don't talk about it enough. Or at least when we do, we don't necessarily talk about it with the level of empathy that it actually needs. We haven't given people the tools to deal with some of these issues. We still don't give young people the tools to deal with it adequately in school. Now, we don't talk about it in a way that's suitable, and when it gets to a tipping point, mental health services, at least here in the UK, are horrifically underfunded, stretched overly thin, and under-resourced. But as I mentioned it to do with mental health, I am going to pivot slightly directly to men's mental health, because there is something that I actually kind of want to talk about in relation to this book. And this is something that I feel I can actually talk about a little bit. So the main character is Aiden, a young man, and it's at an all-male environment, and it talks about toxic masculinity. And whilst we have gone a long way to detoxifying male culture, there are certain things that just will not go away. And one of them is the stigma around mental health and talking about your feelings. And this is something that I've gone through for many years. I have had many issues with my mental health over the years. As of recording this, I am actually currently going through a course of therapy to try and deal with some of my mental health issues. But when I brought this up with people around me and other men in my life that I'm close to or related to or are close friends, it's rarely gone well. And there's two words that just won't go away in terms of male mental health when you're talking to someone. And it's been said to me within the last couple of months. Man up. What does that even mean? Why is that even a thing? You're being soft. Don't know what you're talking about. Back in my day, oh, you don't know what depression is. The belittling of the feeling and the level of shame that's associated with daring to talk to someone about how broken you feel is still so prevalent within male culture. And there's evidence that this is still a problem when you start to look at suicide rates, unfortunately. And I'm going to end the video with a few statistics, and I will link down below some resources for mental health in the UK. Specifically, I'm going to be pulling from the Samaritans website for England specifically. But a couple of things I just want to touch on very quickly. The biggest killer of people under 35 in the UK is suicide. Why is that a thing? Suicide should never be top of the list of cause of death, ahead of anything. How are we failing so badly, so many people so badly, that that's the top killer for people under 35? That's in general. Next question, next point, is the biggest killer of men under 50. Same question. Why are we failing people so much? And I'm going to leave it with the actual rates of suicide in the UK. So, this is data from 2022. In the UK, there were 5,284 suicides in England. That is 10.5 suicides per 100,000 people. Of all those deaths, 26% were female, 74% were male. The suicide rate in men is triple that of women. Because that specific point of toxic male culture won't go away. And it's not just in male culture, it's cultural in general. but it's especially prevalent, and I want to highlight it here, that it's okay to talk. It's okay to seek help. If people judge you, that's their failing, not yours. Sometimes you just need to talk to people. And it's not weakness to do so, it's actually strength. Sorry to leave it on such a low note. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I really do hope you check this book out. And I'll catch you next time.